Hello and welcome to the African Tech Roundup, episode 44 for the week ending Monday, February 15th. This is where we round up the week's most important tech, digital, and innovation news from across the African continent. My name is Andile Masuku, and with me is my co-host, my good friend, Defo Mohapi. How's pitch season treating you, guy?
It's all good. We'll see how it goes. It's 8 weeks before we 52 episodes, dude.
I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh my word. It's gotta be a year, bruh. Jeez.
That's a long time, but it flew by quite quickly.
I like it a lot. Listen, if you're joining us for the first time wondering, they've been around a year? Well, yes, we have. Please head on to africantechroundup.com and you'll find all our previous episodes, everything you've missed. Do yourself a favor and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We put out very cool updates on there. Our handle on both platforms is at African Roundup. You can find us on Facebook as well at facebook.com/African Tech Roundup.
Right, before we get on to the rest of this week's show, this episode of the African Tech Roundup is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/African Tech. With over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, or MP3 player. Sign up right away, or at least as soon as this podcast is over, by getting a great book called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution by Stephen Levy and narrated by Mike Chamberlain. Just click through to audibletrial.com/African Tech for your free audiobook.
It's a no-brainer, man. Great stuff. Now, last week we met with a chap named Siyabulela Uza. Lots of people call him Sia for short. He's a young engineering graduate from Harvard who got his start in science very young. In fact, he used to experiment with rocket fuel in his mother's kitchen in a little rural town in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. While still very young, he would later become quite well known for his prowess in the field of energy engineering. Now, he's won numerous awards and been granted tons of endowments from around the world. In fact, he's even had a planet named after him, which is insane. Now, he's back on the continent, in South Africa specifically, and besides spearheading a business focusing on the commercialization of solar cells and other related solar technologies, he serves currently as the brand ambassador for French oil giant Total. Now, here's a clip from a conversation I had with Sia, as well as Total's GM for the company's marketing services competency center, Dr. Jerry Gule. Now, I asked them both what tech and innovation trends outside of their core fields of competency that they're excited about right now. Take a listen.
I think what excites me the most are the advances that we're seeing in neuroscience. As you're aware, people think that we only use 10% of our brain, right? And look at how much we've done only using 10%. Imagine if we had 20%, imagine if we had 33%, but the convergence of neuroscience with technologies such as neurofeedback therapy and advances in biochemistry that are allowing people to access, more capabilities of their brain is going to be very, very fascinating. But I think even closer to home, what we're seeing in the automotive industry right now, for the first time, we're starting to see technology playing a bigger role in terms of how the cars of the future are being made. What, Tesla is doing with their vehicles. I think that's an exciting part. I think outside of energy, outside of my interests, those would be my most exciting things. Three things really: neuroscience, the future of transportation, and artificial intelligence, robotics. And what will that mean? What will that mean for Africa? We have this reliance on trade unions, but that's going to shift our labor markets. What will robotics do? I mean, it's a very, very interesting discussion. As if you're following the World Economic Forum, where we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, how is Africa going to be relevant in the fourth industrial revolution? Are we going to be left behind like we've been, or are we going to take the lead? It's up to us.
What would you say is tickling your fancy at the moment, Dr. Quinn?
What is really tickling my fancy? A couple of things, but at the top of that is what is happening in medical science. I mean, some of the things that are coming out of there are just amazing. The fact that you can reproduce things, you can now stuff that we thought was only possible in fiction is now becoming a reality. So that's exciting. It's also scary because we are finding that the legal systems are not really geared up to deal with the new things that are the new developments. But it is exciting. It is scary at the same time to see to just to wonder where is this actually going to end and what does it mean. So it's challenging some of our concepts, some of our beliefs. Over this past weekend, I listened to an interview where these explorations that are taking place, explorations going to Mars and people going there possibly not coming back. So it's some of the exciting stuff. It's exciting because that's what explorers did in the past. They went to places that they didn't know. If I just talk in the case of our industry now, the petroleum sector, everybody is looking. We are. And it's Total leading that, leading into looking at alternative energy, solar being one, and we're very proud that we are a leader in that particular area. So, but that's providing other opportunities and other developments, and possibly there'll be other startups as a result of that particular venture.
Thank you very much both for your time, Siya Xhosa and Dr. Gule.
Thank you, Andile.
Thank you, Andile. Let's make this Africa's tech century.
All right, you're on, buddy. Now, to listen to the full conversation I had with Siya Xhosa and Dr. Jerry Gule, head straight to SoundCloud and search for African Tech Roundup, or you can find the link posted on our Facebook account at facebook.com/African Tech Roundup, or on Twitter at African Roundup. Now, interesting, one of the things that Siya mentioned, therefore, is AI that he's excited about. Look, the idea of AI, I'm excited about as well. It's just from a practical things that are impacting my life point of view right now, I have not that much to be excited about. I don't know about you.
No, it's still in its basics. But one thing that people have been deceived by is Hollywood. Perception created by Hollywood has been about AI being this wonderful technology that robots can think for themselves, they can feel, they can sort of evolve and behave like humans. And that is actually not true, because these robots are created by human beings and the software that runs them is programmed by a human being. Yes, there is machine learning, but just to get a good idea of where we are with artificial intelligence, is I'll use a very basic but hopefully something to illustrate how crude we still are in terms of stages of AI, is something like autocorrect, which is supposed to be predictive analytics in its basic form. How many times have you typed certain words and it gives you totally incorrect words? Even those advanced keyboards that are supposed to be learning your way of speaking and the words you use still go way off from what you want to use. But a good example of AI then comes in the form of Tesla, in terms of the self-driving software update that they've got. I think it's upgrade to the operating system 7 that they run on. You just click a key and the car drives itself out of the garage and all sorts of things. So yeah, but we're still at a crude stage. The whole thing of a robot apocalypse, it's not going to happen unless somebody decides to program robots to kill a lot of humans.
That kind of makes sense, because in the US, I think some states have decided to treat self-driving cars as actual people, in which case they'd probably hold the owner responsible for anything a self-driving car did. Again, speaking to your point that nothing can possibly happen outside of a human being, imputing his or her will on the machine.
Exactly. That car is not going to one day decide that we're going to drive you somewhere else, unless somebody hacks into it and obviously manipulates it and drives you somewhere, which has happened, by the way, with Jeep Cherokee in the US.
It's crazy. The AI I'm dealing with right now is, again, a very crude form. I put myself on this list real quick, and I know the news is waiting, but it's interesting. These guys have just sparked my imagination in terms of what excites me right now. So I've been testing out the Grid.io, which is a web building artificial intelligence run platform. So the idea being, you just put it in your content, and it just decides how best to present it, and all the right colors and when. And I've been on this list they've been promoting it for like 2 years. I was on their beta list, and I finally got online this past week. Oh my word, mixed feelings, mostly bad for me, because it's pretty awful. It's pretty much AI 1.0, and I'm paying for it.
Yeah, I mean, we still, my opinion, I still think we're far off from the wonderful stuff that you've seen in Hollywood, where a robot can predict what you're going to do and cook you supper because it knows what you feel like tonight and things like that. So I think we're still very, very far from that.
Well, I'm glad it doesn't prevent us from dreaming or being excited about the advancements in science and in technology and in innovation. I'm still very excited about what the potential of AI specifically would be, but also all the beautiful things we can do if we put our minds to it and harness, technology for the good. What are you interested in? We've heard from Siyatluza and we've heard from Dr. Gule. We're dabbling with AI, mixed feelings about it, but we're still excited. What are you excited about? Give us a shout on Twitter at African Roundup. But right now, it's on to the news, folks. So first up, Uber rival Rocket Internet-owned Easy Taxi has announced a $9.8 million asset financing plan to help their drivers improve the efficiency and quality of their vehicles in Kenya. Now, isn't this what Uber should be doing in Kenya, given what we reported last week?
True, but they've already done that in South Africa. Remember with Westbank, FNB-owned Westbank, where they giving again loan facilities to drivers to buy new cars or lease new cars, etc.
Kenya, does this answer your concerns about foreign companies coming here and basically carving out a niche for themselves, leaving out the locals the incumbents who still need to make a living from this? Is this a great way to, what's the word? Include people? Is this a great inclusion method that they're adopting? We want to hear from you. There's reportedly about 2,000 Easy Taxi operators in Kenya, in Nairobi, Nakuru, and Mombasa. Are you guys excited about this development? What about taxi drivers who have been in the business for a while? Is this welcome news for you? Do you think Uber will be doing something along these lines, Stefan?
I think they will. I mean, once they've done it in South Africa, likely they'll do it in other parts of the developing world. But more interesting, and I note now, is that people haven't been coming after Easy Taxi saying it's a foreign company. Odd.
And they've been there longer than Uber, I think, actually. Didn't they actually get there? Okay, so they're beating Uber to the buzzer in two respects. Being there first, and correct us if we're wrong, being there first, and of course, putting out a financial inclusion, facility, to make sure that people aren't left out. Beating them to the buzzer. I have a feeling though that Uber will do what it does best. Doesn't matter who got there first. They'll probably just dominate regardless.
Nah, Uber will crush it.
Shucks.
Straight up.
Ish. All right, but all the best with it, and certainly hat tip towards Easy Taxi for doing what's necessary to sort of include people who would otherwise be left out. For our next story, the last time we saw Marek Mzilowski, I can never say this guy's name right.
Marek Mzilowski.
Yeah, that dude. So the last time we saw him in the flesh, Chinedu is what they call him out in Nigeria. The last time we saw him in the flesh was at a hotel conference in Johannesburg. And now after leaving hotel's booking platform, Javago NG, he's announced a new application which promises, guess, no surprises here, hotels, that they should sign up so that Hotel Oga can help them build, quote, online presence and maximize revenue.
Interesting. I mean, this comes on the back of apparently, allegedly, his words. Rocket Internet is trying to sue him, and I think we now get a small glimpse of why they were probably trying to sue him, because he's launching something they probably think is competing with what he was doing at Javago. But I think the proposition he's coming with for Hotel Oga is quite interesting, because he's saying that he can provide the hotels with online presence, etc., and a booking platform for themselves, so they don't have to go to the likes of Hotels NG and Javago.
I'd be curious to understand, because I've been to the site and I understand. And basically, if you're interested, basically you have to write him, or basically submit a form and find out what's up. And so if you're interested at all, they'll kind of let you know. I guess it's a screening mechanism, because it could be his competitors trying to figure out what he's trying to do before he's ready to launch. It's not quite clear to me what the differentiators are, because from the sounds of it, it still seems to be the kind of service smaller hotels, little guys, the kind that traditionally would sign up on Javago or Hotels and G and that kind of thing. So how it's different from what he's just left behind, I'm not sure. That said, it could also be a platform which allows incumbents, big guys, the Hiltons and the massive groups, the Sun International groups and guys like that. Perhaps they're lagging behind and they're stuck with infrastructure they need to learn how to sweat, and they might not be, clued up onto how to do it on the web. Is that what he's after, I wonder?
I mean, I think hotels will take up any offer to sell hotel space, like hotel rooms. So I think anything new that promises them to do that, they'll take it up. But he's got experience, I'd imagine, from working at Jovago. So yeah, we trust that he knows what he's doing.
Well, all the best to you, Chinedu. Please give us a shout and let us know exactly what you're doing. We were on the site. We're not quite clear, what the value proposition is beyond what you've said you're going to do, which is help hotels build online presence and maximize revenue, which quite frankly, Jovago used to do or still does. If there's something to this innovation we're not quite understanding, give us a shout. Now, the next story is about a dude with loads of time on his hands, it turns out. A Nigerian dude named Demola Ajao, who reportedly has decided to reformat Nigeria's national budget in order to render it discernible.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you say, he probably had a lot of time. I can imagine sifting through pages and pages of a document that's written in cryptic words and numbers that are not formatted in a format that he presented it as we've seen. But it's useful for the normal citizen to view his site because it breaks things down to what you want to see. Maybe you're not interested. You don't have to sift through this document to find a certain budget for your municipality or for your state. Then you just click to specifics and you click to a specific budget line item and you can see it.
Yeah, the UI isn't quite there yet. In terms of experience, it's still a bit of a drudge to go through all that information. That said, it's a lot better than going through the PDFs, at the official, the government site. But he's not even trying to pretend this is the finished product. He has put it out there that, he's looking forward to people, joining in and pitching in, crowdsourcing essentially the skills he needs to turn this into a tool that the average citizen in Nigeria can benefit from. So wherever you are in Nigeria, you can start to understand what your government is planning to spend for your area, regionally, down to the town. It's a great initiative. Well done to you, Demola. And shout out to him on Twitter at Dewole10. Dewole10 on Twitter. If you're interested in joining his project and helping him bring it up to scratch, I'm sure he would love to hear from you peeps. Now, staying with Nigeria, MTN Nigeria is in trouble again, folks, again. This time, Etisalat Nigeria is taking them to court over what they're claiming to be anti-competitive behavior on the part of MTN Nigeria.
Yeah, I think I read the complaint by Etisalat, but it seems odd as well because they're saying that which is something we discussed when we discussed the acquisition of Visaphone by MTN Nigeria. They're saying that MTN Nigeria is gonna have an unfair advantage because they're buying Visaphone for the spectrum, and having that spectrum, according to Etisalat Nigeria, is going to give MTN Nigeria a huge advantage over competitors, including Etisalat Nigeria. And one would imagine, that's part of business. The second argument is that the bid to buy Visaphone was not a public one, and not everybody was invited. But this is not public business; it's a private business. So I don't really understand where Etisalat is coming from in this specific case.
The 800 megahertz spectrum, as it turns out, will be very handy for the rollout of 4G services, and MTN will be looking to dominate in that space with voice revenues dropping. The mobile telco space, at least from a revenue perspective, increasingly become a data-driven one. People like Etisalat are looking at this going, this is going to be ridiculous. Perhaps it was of public interest from that respect, in terms of disclosure. Because we mentioned, you called it actually. The last time we talked about this is that the details of that transaction, how and where and what, were not disclosed. And perhaps they should have, given the public interest in that particular spectrum.
Definitely. But we'll see what the Nigerian Communications Authority says on this one. Says on this one.
Look, of course, they already approved, in principle, I think outright, actually, not even in principle, they actually outright approved the deal that saw MTN buy Visaphone. It'd be interesting to see if they go back on this, given the uproar it's causing. And will they be dragged to court to try sort of explain how they might have overlooked any sort of potential anti-competitive issues that might arise?
Yeah, I think the owners in this case is with the Nigerian Communications Commission and not with MTN Nigeria. They're just doing business as usual. So for once in the news, there's nothing really wrong that MTN did, except, as we'll hear quickly, in South Africa.
In South Africa, MTN has been issued with a takedown notice to remove music from its stores. An organization called the Composers, Authors and Publishers Association, Compaso, is accusing MTN of basically owing songwriters, their representatives, somewhere in the region of 63,000 US dollars worth of unpaid royalties for 2014.
Yeah, and apparently one of those involved whose owed money is Dr. Malinga, so I'm sure he's kicking down doors out there.
I don't know, that kick, my guy. You don't be messing with a Malinga.
I'm struggling to understand why MTN wouldn't have paid these royalties, because they're saying that they've outsourced in terms of the selling of music to third parties, which is your content providers, people who develop these content aggregation for music, etc. So that's their argument. So they're referring musicians to those people, but they are the platform, they are the marketing platform, they are the platform that everybody buys from. So it's quite interesting.
Is it just me, or do I remember Apple having these sort of issues back in the day when they first started? People basically started to complain that their royalties took forever to come around.
They took forever. In this case, MTN doesn't want to pay.
That's absolutely ridiculous, MTN. Absolutely ridiculous. The immediacy of it being on the internet, all right, it turns it into sort of a commodity. It's the equivalent of like your securities broker trying to say, it's an immediate sale. Like someone bought it. Yeah. There's an exchange of value. So I don't understand where the third party issue comes in there.
They're saying that because they've got, I don't know how it works with MTN, but they're saying that they've got content aggregators. So somebody who would handle their music offering, or somebody who would handle probably the MTN, what's that, View?
Oh yeah, there's View as well. Well, all I'm saying is, MTN, this doesn't make sense. I mean, your brand's already struggling in your core area. You've reached out into an area where I suppose you're trying to build affinity and give people reasons to stay within your ecosystem. And then you go and you basically rape them, allegedly,
Well, yeah, I mean, they've acknowledged that they owe musicians money, or they haven't acknowledged in as many words, but they do owe the musicians money. And now the musicians are asking for the content to be taken down. I mean, apart from Dr. Malinga, there's also Cash Time Life. So I can imagine KO going to knock them out.
Anyway, listen, moving on now, but staying with South Africa. Now, Barclays' own banking group, Absa, is piloting a new predictive alert service. There's that AI again. It's not terribly new because I know for a fact that Nedbank offers a similar service, probably not as elaborate as some of the things that Absa will be seeking to do with their predictive service. But the idea is it will notify customers of potential shortfalls in their bank accounts. If you've got debit orders that are meant to be coming off your account and you don't have any cash in that account for whatever reason, it'll give you an alert to make sure that there is cash and other things too.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking to make the life of the customer easier. And I would imagine, I mean, this is one way of retaining customers, because you're hooking them onto your platform, and by alerting them, they deposit money, they interact with your bank, and they use your services more.
And I think they're also hoping to trace your buying patterns, your purchasing patterns, really closely, such that if you, at a certain time of the month, generally pour fuel in your car, it might send you an alert saying, hey, listen, you've got a fuel pouring session upcoming. You need to have cash in your account. Listen, I don't even know how detailed they are, but from what we understand, these are the sort of aspirations they have. They want to be your sort of financial advisor, give you the heads up, your personal assistant, your financial personal assistant. Do you dig the idea? Have you started using it? Have you experienced the service Nedbank provides? Perhaps you're in another part of Africa, or indeed the rest of the world, where your bank provides similar services. Have you enjoyed it? Let us know. Do you think they're onto something, or is this just a gimmick that's trying to keep us in an ecosystem we're all trying to escape, and eventually we'll all be using Bitcoin anyway and saying goodbye to them?
Well, this can still be a layer on top of any other financial system in terms of the intelligence and the analytics. But it's quite interesting. I mean, I happen to know the chief of staff of the analytics division. They've got quite a good team going on there. But yeah, all the best to them.
All the best indeed. So, following South African President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address on Thursday last week, this dropped on the internet. Take a listen.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget.
Anonymous press release. Operation Africa is an ongoing effort by several activists within Anonymous who have begun collaborating. The focus of the operation is a disassembly of corporations. and governments that enable and perpetuate corruption on the African continent. This consists of organizations responsible for child abuse labor, as well as internet censorship within the continent and globally. We are fighting alongside other operations such as OP Nigeria and Anonymous SA to help free the continent from the plague of exploitation that has been occurring for centuries.
That sounds rather ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, following that, they've also gone and hacked the government communications information system database and released, I think, approximately 1,500 details of employees.
So, I mean, you can go and listen to you can Google it and listen to the whole clip online, and they explain why they do what they do. Basically, this is a bunch of disgruntled Earth lovers, it seems. They're anti-GMO, from what we can gather, anti-child labor, anti-corruption. In this case, they're pointing to the South African government as being complicit in crimes against humanity, for lack of a better phrase. And because they say local government hasn't done anything on these issues for all these years, they're finally going to punish it. They've been dumping this data to be making it freely available on the internet, carefully sifting it through and only putting out government employee information so that no one else is hurt. Yeah, interesting debate. I mean, we've had a debate around hacktivism. Do you empathize with guys like this?
To a certain extent, I do. They're using their skills to effect change in the best way they know how to, I guess.
They're criminals though, right?
In what way?
Well, they are stealing information that doesn't belong to them and spreading it, which is a crime technically. So, I mean, when I say, do you empathize with them? Do you empathize with them to the point where you can ignore the criminality of what they're doing?
It's a victimless crime. You can't ignore, that's why they are anonymous. So you can't ignore that they know that it is a crime. So they wouldn't come forward with their identities and say, my name is X and I did this, because they know immediately they'll get arrested.
It's not a victimless crime. As a foreign national living in South Africa, I know that many years ago I applied for a work permit. I was denied. There was a person's name on the denial on the paper, and I remember feeling of course, I later appealed and got granted. So I'm legal. Okay. So anyway, there was a name of a person on that list. And I presume if I searched long enough and they still worked at the Department of Home Affairs, for example, I might be able to track down that person. I don't think it's a victimless crime.
We could debate this, but anyway, back to what they did. In terms of leaking the information, I mean, they've leaked people's personal details, including cell phone numbers, and the database they hacked included sort of hashed passwords. I wouldn't go into explaining. Hashed is like an algorithm that for layman's terms, disguises the password, but it's always the same length. But they used MD5. The department, GCIS, uses MD5, which can be reversible. Then you can know the password. So you get a lot of details on that database they leaked, and I saw some interesting names there.
Oh my word.
I'm not saying I've seen the database. I'm not saying I have or have not. I'm just saying there's some interesting names there.
From a distance, you saw what looked like.
Nah, but yeah, I mean, I feel for the government employees, seriously. I mean, having your cell phone number there, having your possibly password, somebody could log in if they can sort of get that hash backwards and get your password. So yeah, on that part, yes.
Yeah, this one's rough. So I've got mixed feelings about it. Do people have a right to make a point and try and can people sometimes feel so desperate that they have to do drastic things to get the attention of our lawmakers? I guess so. But it is a criminal thing. You decide for yourself whether these guys deserve high fives or 5-year terms in jail. Our final story and the springboard to this week's discussion comes courtesy of a very famous venture capitalist and Facebook board member, Marc Andreessen, who managed to offend hundreds of millions of Indians around the world, and indeed many other people, non-Indians as well, with a single poorly worded tweet, which he claims was his attempt to express his disappointment with India banning free basics. Hi, man.
Yeah, I think he was emotional. Looking back at the story, what happened is that before Marc Andreessen tweeted, India announced that they're banning all free internet services because they violate net neutrality. So it wasn't only free basics by Facebook.
So Andreessen now, in response to this, but speaking mostly for Facebook because he's a board member and not speaking for them officially. He gets up there and says, makes a crazy comment, which makes him sound like he longs for the old days when, colonialism was a thing.
Yeah, you should never, one, go onto Twitter when you're emotional, two, tweet something that needs context, because 140 characters is never enough.
Dude, has this guy never heard of Medium and blogging? You express yourself in greater detail so that you're not misunderstood. I think we're becoming lazy in terms of trying to express complex ideas. Isn't Thabo Mbeki famous for having said that?
Why didn't he take to Facebook?
This is the thing. The guy goes to Twitter and it becomes a Twitter storm on a rival platform, Ibu.
Yeah, I mean, he could have explained himself properly on Facebook. No, point by point, explain the context, explain the history, instead of tweeting anti-colonialism has worked out nicely for India, didn't it? Or something like that, which sounded like he wanted to be sarcastic, but you don't know given the whole context of everything. So it comes across very bad.
And at first I thought he was actually on the side of India, sort of taking the mick out of his board and the vision of Facebook. Maybe he wasn't on, maybe he was just trying to show the world that not everyone at Facebook digs this. Then I realized, no, later when he's trying to explain himself, I mean, I'm going to quote a tweet he said later. He says, denying the world's poorest free partial internet connectivity when today they have none for ideological reasons strikes me as morally wrong. No, sir, I believe you are dead wrong, because it's a similar argument that we have here in South Africa over apartheid, where people who were obviously previously advantaged by a system that disadvantaged millions of people systematically, now I want to say in 2016, listen, just get over it. Let's be pragmatic. Come on, leave the ideological stuff alone. Let's all work together. Let's just work hard together and make this work. No, sir, there are structural inconsistencies in the countries we live in and in who runs the economies. And I'm sorry, India doesn't trust Facebook to own the internet.
Yeah, I mean, net neutrality is an age-old debate. But interesting is what Daniel Mwesigo from Uganda once wrote, saying that it's amazing that net neutrality is only violated in developing countries, because in the United States, I mean, Barack Obama went up and specifically recorded a video, wrote a blog post promising Americans that there will be no blocking, there will be no fast or slow lanes, there will be, blah, blah, all the good tenets of net neutrality. But when American companies go to other nations, they feel like they're doing all of us a favor. That was his argument, and I tend to agree with that.
I saw a really cheeky tweet the other day. I think I even liked it or retweeted it or whatever. Actually, I said "aish" because it was rough. It basically said, "Oh, Beyonce's on tour. Rihanna's going on tour with Tiger or whoever, and so is going on tour, and they're going to Europe, and Drake's going over there, and then who's going to Africa? UNICEF and Free Basics."
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg and Free Basics.
Come on, guys. The thing is there grounds for making this Free Basics issue a neo-colonial debate? What do you think, Dev?
Yeah, there is. But I think some of the arguments put forward pro net neutrality as well are good, in terms of people are saying that the internet should be treated like a utility. I think it's something we've discussed previously, and that but then the problem comes in that who should be responsible for it? Because we're saying that, okay, we can't trust private organizations with it because obviously they're going to throttle certain traffic because it's theirs. Or like Facebook, it's they play God and decide which app goes on free and which app doesn't go free, determining what people who are going onto the internet for the first time see. But then can you trust governments? Because as we've discussed previously, some of them are repressive and might say, oh no, this is not allowed on, this is allowed on. So who should have the responsibility? It sounds easy when we criticize people like Mark Andreessen for saying that, for arguing against India banning Free Basics. But when you think a step further and say, okay, what should happen? It becomes more complex.
So he's calling for a pragmatic approach where we're able to discuss issues like colonialism and its modern day cousin, neo-colonialism, and have those discussions, but not let it affect the pragmatic approach to making people's lives. He's saying the internet makes people's lives better. And so what do we say to that argument? The argument that there are kids right now that are being actively disadvantaged. There are kids in the world, in the developing world right now, who have no access to the internet that he's put here. They don't even have access to partial internet, which would take them from 0 to at least 1. You're depriving them of that jump. How can you condone that? How can you not be pragmatic enough to see that this could be good for them?
I disagree with him. Well, a few things. One, who determines partial internet? Why should they have partial internet and not full internet? Number one. Why should poorer people have partial internet and not full internet? Who determines that? Obviously, he'd like to determine that because it serves Facebook's interest. Or whoever else is offering free internet, Google, whoever else. So who determines whether it's you go from 0 internet to 0.1 to 0.2 to 0.3? I don't think it should be private organizations because they're going to serve their own interest. Secondly, was he really saying that? I mean, was he saying we should, because that's why I say 140 characters there isn't context. Was he really saying that we should separate the issues? Or was he saying they're one? I mean, it's very difficult to tell whether he was saying we should separate the colonialism debate from offering internet or offering services to poor people.
The cynics would say what he was really saying is just leave Facebook alone. If everyone else was banned and Facebook was left alone and Free Basics was allowed in India, he wouldn't have made that tweet. That's what some people are saying.
Yeah. The thing is, the messenger is also the message. I mean, he's the wrong person to make that argument. So if he somehow lobbied someone else who's not involved with Facebook, who's totally remote from Facebook and asked them to tweet those things, that would probably have come off better because that person has no direct interest in the whole argument. But him saying all those things, I mean, he's board member of Facebook, so you can't ignore that fact.
And Facebook's main man, Mark Zuckerberg, had to literally write the world and say, listen, this is not what Facebook feels and this is what I feel. Dude's out on a limb on his own, trying to justify his statements still with later statements and then later sort of backing out of the debate altogether. Listen, what do you think, everybody? Should we allow Free Basics to come into Africa and basically do what they say they're going to do, which is provide partial internet to children who would otherwise have nothing, children and adults who would otherwise have nothing? Do we stand between the poor of our continent and access, even in a limited form, to the internet? Or is this just another form of colonialism and a way to create a monopolistic environment where only companies like Facebook can actually control how it is we access the internet and benefit from it? Tell us what you think on Twitter @African Roundup, and of course on Facebook, facebook.com/African Tech Roundup, or just drop us a quick comment on the website directly. The address is africantechroundup.com. Now, before we go, once again, today's episode of the African Tech Roundup is brought to you by Audible. Now, they're offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Now, we recommend a great book called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution by Stephen Levy and narrated by Mike Chamberlain. The 25th anniversary edition of this classic book traces the exploits of the computer revolution's original hackers. Quite fitting this week, given the hacking story we reported on. But this takes you right back into history and looking at the brilliant and eccentric nerds from the late 1950s through to the 1980s, the people who took risks, bent rules, and pushed the world into a radical new direction. And now it has updated material from noteworthy, very famous hackers like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Richard Stallman, and Steve Wozniak, people who've changed the face of modern-day computing. Now, to get Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution, or any other audiobook of your choice for free, head over to audibletrial.com/African Tech. That's audibletrial.com/African Tech. Otherwise, that's it. Therefore,
I hope Mark Andreessen doesn't ban us of the Free Basics in other countries.
Imagine. That would not be like her. Mark. I'm Andile Masuku.
I'm Tefo Mohapi.
And so till next time, do take care. Take it easy.